So today we're going to rebuild motorcycle front forks. The bike we've got is a MUTT Fat Sabbath 125. It's a Euro 4 model 2020. And the problem is with this is the forks are leaking that bad that it's contaminating the front brakes and his front brakes not working very well. So we're going to clean the front brakes up as well and fit some new pads on it. But in this video we'll just show you how to do the forks. Remove the rubber protective cap. Then undo the front axle nut with a 19mm socket. Next, loosen the caliper bolts with a 14mm socket. Then undo the fork cap with a 22mm spanner. Next, you want a way to jack the front end of the bike up so the wheel and the forks are in the air. Once you've done this, you can now remove your front brake caliper. Then remove the front wheel. Be careful of the spacer and the speedo sensor. Remove the front mudguard using a 10mm socket. Now on some of the MUTT models you have to remove one of the forks before you can take the mudguard off. Using a little flathead screwdriver, remove the little caps on the bottom yoke. Then loosen the bolts with a 6mm Allen key or a 6mm hex key socket. And same again on the top yoke. Now you can slide one of the forks out of the way. Remove the cap completely while putting a little bit of downward pressure on the fork. Remove the spacer, then the washer, then slowly remove the spring. Now you can drain the oil. When draining it, make sure you pump the fork up and down 15 to 20 times to make sure all the oil comes out of the damper rod. Then carefully clamp the fork in a vise with some soft jaws and let it drain. If you've got fork gaiters on, remove them now. Using a flathead screwdriver, remove the dust seal. Then remove the retaining clip. Now for this you might need two people. On the top of the fork you'll need a 21mm hex key socket with a large extension bar. On the other side you need an 8mm hex key socket, but make sure you use a quarter drive adapter and extension bar so it's thin enough to get inside the fork. Hold it on the top and undo the damper rod bolt on the bottom. Then fully remove the damper rod bolt. Make sure the washer comes out as well. Sometimes it might get stuck in the fork. Now at this point you can remove the damper rod. It might come out with a tool. If not, you can simply tip the fork upside down and the rod should come out and the spring might come out as well. Now you can drive the fork stanchion out. There's that little top out spring. Next, remove your old oil seal. You want to bin this and replace it. Then you can remove the washer, then the guide bush. Then take the slide bush out of the stanchion. The guide bush and slide bush need inspecting, make sure they're in good condition. If not, they'll need replacing. Now you've got a spacer inside the fork leg. Sometimes it gets stuck in and sometimes it comes out with a stanchion. Take the washer off the damper rod bolt and throw it away. You want to replace that. It's a 10mm crush washer. Now all the parts, I like to clean them in 2 stages. Roughly clean them with a rag and some brake cleaner. Then once all that's done, you thoroughly clean them later with blue roll. You want to make sure you thoroughly clean every single component. Now it's very important to check your fork stanchion. Check it for any pitting and marks. If there's any marks, scratches, deep gouges or pitting, it will damage your new fork seals. Once all that's done, it's ready to assemble. Start with a fork lower. Clamp it in a vise with some soft jaws. Put the slide bush in a bit of oil and fit it onto the stanchion, make sure it clips in place. And then fit your spacer onto the stanchion. Next, slide your stanchion into the fork leg until it's all the way home. Then you get the damper rod and the top out spring. Put the spring over the damper rod, put the damper rod in a little bit of fork oil and fit it with the 21mm hex key socket. Next, get the damper rod bolt and fit a new 10mm crush washer. Apply a bit of blue Loctite. And using an 8mm hex key socket, tighten it up to 27 Newton meters. Next, get your guide bush and put it in a little bit of oil and slide it over the fork stanchion. Then put your washer over the fork stanchion. And then with your 38mm fork seal driver, drive them in place until they're fully home. Then put some rubber grease around the inside and outside of your fork seal. Please make sure you fit this the correct way. That's the bottom and that's the top. If you fit that upside down, it'll leak. Slide it over the stanchion and using the fork seal driver, drive it all the way. Next, put your retaining clip over and clip it in place. If it doesn't clip in place, that means your fork oil seal isn't fully seated. Then get your dust seal, apply a bit of rubber grease on it, and then slide that over the stanchion and then turn the fork seal drive around and drive that in place too. Next you need 380ml of 10 weight fork oil per leg on these bikes. Now with the fork stanchion fully extended, slowly pour the fork oil into the fork. Then you want to compress and rebound the fork fully 15 to 20 times, nice and slow. Once that's done, slowly put the fork spring back in place. Then the washer. then the spacer, then screw the cap on some of the way, apply a bit of rubber grease around the O-ring, and then tighten it all the way with a 22mm spanner. Next, you just want to compress it a bit and see if it compresses and rebounds okay. Once that's done, get some brake cleaner and some blue roll or a clean rag and wipe the fork stanchion. Then fit the fork gaiter, if you've got one. Once that's done, you can put the fork in place. Make sure the chrome part of the fork stanchion is level to the top of the top yoke. Then nip the clamp bolts up. Then torque them up to 23 Nm on the bottom yoke and 23 Nm on the top yoke. Now using that 22mm spanner, you can tighten up the fork cap. Make sure you put those little caps on, and that's it. One fork is complete. Now you do it all again. Once that's done, loosely fit the mudguard back on. Don't fully tighten the bolts yet. Fit the spacer on the right side of the front wheel and the speedo drive on the left side. Make sure that speedo drive is fully seated and in the correct position, otherwise you might break it. Put a bit of lithium grease on the axle and slide that on. Then fit the nut. Using the 19mm spanner, torque it up to 60 Nm. Now you can nip up your mudguard bolts. Make sure your brake disc is nice and clean with some brake cleaner and a clean rag or blue roll, and fit the caliper. Torque the front caliper bolts up to 30 Nm. Now this is an important step. Make sure if your bike is a combined braking system to pump the front and rear brake levers until you've got a good brake. Make sure the bike's nice and clean, and that's it, you're done. So that's how you rebuild the forks on your bike. Hopefully that gives you a bit more confidence on doing it yourself. For parts and accessories for these bikes, follow the link in the description. We'll also link the fork seals, the fork oil and the fork seal drivers for these bikes in the description for you. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe and hit the bell icon for notifications.